Hey guys, Ryu here with another vid, and this one we're gonna be talking about bevels and the importance of bevels in your design. Now, bevels are essential and they do a lot of things to your model, okay? First of all, we have bevels and chamfers. So what's the difference? Well, bevel is something that's going to be very tiny and round like this. Well, it could be fat, it could be really fat like that, but that's a bevel because it's round. Chamfer is something that looks like a sliced off piece of geo, okay? That's a chamfer, the flat surface around, okay? So that's a bevel, right? And that's a chamfer, right? Here. So that's a chamfer, okay? And that's a bevel, right? It's crucial for light breaks and splitting plane shifts. Well, let me explain. If you look at this chamfer here, right? This one, okay? You'll see how light breaks. So the light is kind of flat in here and is flat in here, but there's a reflection in here because the angle at which light falls at the chamfer creates a reflection. And this reflection going to split these two planes, so the one on the top and the one on the side, okay? So it separates plane shifts, all right? If that was just a bevel, like a tiny one, you would not be seeing anything. You will be seeing like a tiny little highlight like in here, although that tiny one here is also a chamfer, which is why there's a beautiful highlight here on this edge. Yeah, there's a tiny chamfer here going around. In fact, there are a lot of chamfers here. There's a chamfer in here too, which is why you can see quite a decent amount of light being reflected and the edges being pronounced. Okay, that's the trick, right? You get plane shifts and chamfers all the way here, everywhere, right? There's two chamfers here on the top on the gun. See how the reflection works? And then you got these massive soft bevels, which also show a transition of form from highlight to shadow. So bevels and chamfers are important to, essential really, to emphasizing the form, okay? How the form reads in a render. See that chamfer here, how beautifully the light just reflects from it? It creates like a really nice white break of lighting and goes from really dark to very bright to bright, yeah? So there's a plane shift change. These edges here have only bevel, you see, there's no chamfer. So the highlight is very small, yeah? This one, there's a chamfer, the highlight is much stronger, right? I hope you can see what I'm talking about. Same here, look, this massive chamfer, how, see, there is a chamfer here too. They are just simply plane shifts. They are massive chamfers, right? And they allow you to see reflections go in a bit more interesting way through across your mesh. Here too, the round one, there is a chamfer, like a massive one. You see that? All right. So chamfers are essential. Boom, another chamfer. Look, there's a massive highlight here on this joint, and there is a kind of like a dark area here. There's a plane shift, and it's just simply emphasized by a chamfer because when you shift the when you have a chamfer, the plane angle changes, right? The geo angle changes at which the light falls on it. So when the light falls as a constant angle, when you change the geo plane, okay, that means light's going to reflect differently from it. So, bring it to an example, if I brought this into look depth, right, and make this into something really reflective, all right? So let's go to materials and make this really reflective, right? Okay. And then when I'm going to move my camera about and create a bit more interesting light in here, so a bit more directional, okay, like this. The light stays constant, right, but I'm rotating the object, and you can, for example, see, stuff like reflections. This is really bright, but this is really dark. So there is an immediate plane shift here, and there's an immediate cut in terms of darkness and brightness. There's a very, very clear border between these three, right? And that's what you can achieve by using chamfers, bevels, etc. Now the trick is to use different sizes of chamfers and bevels, okay? That's the trick. The more sizes of chamfers and bevels you have, the better, okay? So for example, in this instance, right, you can see that this chamfer here is much narrower than this one. It was moved. But what if it was just simply here and all the edges would be equidistant? So you have the same distance here and the same distance here, more or less, right? And the same distance here. But when you have something shifted, it looks a bit more interesting. because you create more drama in one place and less drama in another, so you bring attention to a specific area. So for example, with simply moving, okay, moving this here like that, right, I'm creating more drama in here because there's a larger area of contrast between dark chamfer and bright surface. You see that? Let me show you very quickly how we could create very easily some details here. Okay, so I'm going to shift to nearest edge, and I'm going to just simply create, you know, simple wedges here. Okay, so I'm going to create some wedge, and I'm going to shift it a bit, you know, this way, and I'm going to move it in array mode. So I'm going to create an array and move it here on the axis, and let's just you know, remove these and sharpen. And you can see now how you can bring even more attention to this area by simply adding more details, and this is becoming like it's the center of attention right now. Okay, you could create, you know, for example, very tiny you know, grooves or chamfers, right? So you could, for example, do something like this, select this edge right here, and let's drop it in. So EM macro, and you know, just drop it in. We're gonna have to decrease the bevel because the bevel here is mental, so let's make it smaller, right? And you see, that's not a bevel going all around, and creates a little bit more interest, you know, around the edges. Okay, so if I go to look depth, right, and you know, we look at this from a material perspective, and you can see how light breaks now, and you created this kind of a beautiful outline that reinforces the edges. Okay, let me just make it a bit brighter because we can see also maybe you know, use a different HDRI, so it's gonna be a bit more visible. And let's make it a bit more, but less reflective and brighter, maybe colorful. Okay, maybe not that colorful, right? And you can see now how this edge, depending on the angle, right, these tiny bevels here, how much attention they bring to these edges, right? And that's just done because of the bevels and this indentation, this cut, yeah. So you know, you can do a lot with bevels and chamfer. Okay, you can change the whole look or feel of your model. They're really essential. So don't go lazy mode and just, you know, be slapping uniform bevels and stuff on top of your model. Try to play with, you know, different sizes. Okay, try to play with different sizes of bevels. So I have one bevel thick, one bevel thin. You see, it's already different feel of this object, right? Already different feel. So when you apply that rule to your model is gonna start looking much more interesting immediately. Also, they're gonna read much more clearly in renders, and this is what you want. You want really nicely well-defined features of your model, right? Otherwise, it's just gonna look bland. So we cover both of them in one go, yeah? Make sure that bevel size and types should be fit here. Make sure that the bevel size and type fit the surrounding shapes and support the main theme of the model or shape. So again, if you're going to add chamfers, you need to make sure they're going to support what you're trying to convey. Okay, so for example, if you're creating a really chiseled, sort of like a harsh looking object, maybe it's not the best idea to go with such a wide bevel like this. Maybe it would be better if you were going with something like this, right? Maybe this would be better for this situation, right? Maybe not a bevel, but maybe a chamfer. Okay, so you need to think what you want to do. Maybe then you could, for example, add tiny bevels in here to smooth it out a little bit, so it's not so harsh, right? And then maybe you could just, you know, keep adding stuff on top of it. Maybe you could just add a chamfer on top of it. Maybe you could add a tinier chamfer, okay, like this. See? So everything you do, it matters, okay? You need to do it consciously, all right? So keep trying things. So every single thing you do with your bevels matters, yeah? It needs to follow the shape and the idea. So for instance, look at this model, okay? There are very wide aggressive chamfers, very wide aggressive cuts, because the model is supposed to be looking aggressive, which is why you have these massive, you know, kind of like a flat surfaces, because they emphasize, you know, this kind of like a sturdiness of it, right? But then if I create something a bit more supple, right, like this, Yeah, see how supple the bevels are, right? They emphasize the suppleness of the whole gun, of this flow of the handle, right? A harsh bevel wouldn't just fit in here. Even this chamfer is massive, but it's softened up by a massive bevel, right? That's the point, okay? So you really need to, you know, even there's a chamfer in the front here in the bottom, it's a cut, yeah? It's beveled smooth with a smooth, soft, nice bevel. Look at the bevel on the top, it's massive, yeah? It's massive. And there's a tiny chamfer going here on the top, you see that? But it's not large, it's tiny. If it was large, it just wouldn't fit. It would be too flat, too angular for this whole form, because the whole form is kind of supple and soft and round, yeah? But then again, when you create something really harsh, okay, really sturdy, you might want to go with, you know, with wider bevels. Like for example here, you can see massive slices, okay, massive bevels, right? Okay, massive cuts. Look at this size of this chamfer, it's massive, right? See what I mean? Same here on this circular thing. Here too, look at this chamfer, it's massive. So you just think about what you're creating, what kind of feel you're going for, and then you can do a lot with bevels and chamfers, right? Strengthening the lines and bevels. This is important. So this is literally what we've done here, okay, with this, right? It's this line here, it's empowering, okay, this chamfer. This line here in the middle, okay? So that groove here, right? It's empowering, right, this chamfer here, because it creates a separation and brings more attention to the edges of the object. See, visually, because you got contrast. If you go to look depth, you clearly have contrast here, right? If this wasn't here, the chamfers would, you know, I mean, you would see them, you would notice them because there is a highlight, but you wouldn't be that much of a contrast, which means you would not create so much drama, because eyes are, you know, eyes will be drawn to places of contrast, because the color is the same, but the values are different, right? So there's a really dark value here and a really bright value here. So you're gonna be drawn to this area, which means you're gonna be drawn to the whole place all around, yeah, all this chamfer. So you could place detail along this edge, and your eye is gonna be drawn there naturally. Because if you place details here, it's just you're gonna ruin the whole thing. You want this place to be empty, so your eyes can glide smoothly around the whole, you know, the whole object. Make sense? All right. And bevels can be used as transitions of foam. You can transition from something flat to something round, like here. Okay, you got the round bevel and you transition to something flat. Okay, this front here, okay, it's not flat. It's actually curved. You can't see that, but this piece here is actually slightly curved, and you can see this in this picture, right? See that it's curved. So this area here, it's actually curved. So it's it looks flat, but it's actually transitioning from flat surfaces to the curved surface. Okay, same thing can be seen in this butt. It's a similar cut. You see, there's a flat surface, and bevel transitions to a flat surface. But then you got these massive cut off, these massive chamfers here, right? And on top, and there's like a tiny bevel here, so you can manipulate with them. Look, there's a cut in here, very smooth bevel, and then a cut again, right? So you can use chamfers and bevels to transition from one form to another as well. So bevels are exceptionally important in your design. Do not underestimate the power of bevels, yeah?